Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm back with another exciting video. Now, over the last couple weeks, I've been showing off a lot of awesome romance comics. I brought you a complete run of Young Romance, and then last time, the first half of a complete run of Young Love, some series you really don't see put together very often. And the result has been that my YouTube channel metrics have been going right in the tank. Everything's down, the views are down, subscribers are down, watch time's down. Everybody's abandoning. Nobody wants to see it, except for apparently whoever you are out there watching this right now. So, what's my response to all of this? I'm bringing you even more romance comics. Hey, what can I say? I do these videos because I love doing them and I love these comics. Not for the accolades, not for the celebrity of it all. So I'm just going to keep showing you what I love. I have a feeling that the YouTube algorithms are squeezing it. There's people that would like these videos if they saw them, but they're not being shown those videos. But what can you do? Hopefully someday someone will stumble upon this archive of classic romance comics and be amazed. So today, second part of Young Love. We're going to bring you the rest of the series. Last time around, we did Young Love numbers 39 to 79, the first 41 issues of DC's version of Young Love starting in 1963. Well, today, we're doing the rest of the run. We're starting issue 80 and going all the way to 126, which is the last of the mainstream romance comics. We covered that last time. There were a few stragglers from Charlton published after that, but they were reprints. So the end of this series is the end of a comic book era, the end of the romance genre. And over those last three videos, we've kind of seen some usual suspects. A lot of early covers by John Romita before he went over to Marvel. A lot of covers by J. Scott Pike. Covers by Nick Cardy. You know, a lot of great artists. You kind of get used to those people. Well, today, a totally different batch of characters. There's going to be some people you're not expecting to see covers from. A lot of unusual choices. Also, some of the usual suspects, but with artwork that doesn't look anything like them. I'm going off of the GCD listings, and some of them I look at the art and I look at who is supposedly did the art, and I'm a little confused. But we're going to see some really cool stuff here today. We're going to jump right in with this number 80. I've already shown this a couple times. First few of these, they're actually covers by Bill Drought, who came over from Harvey. Not a name that bounces around that much in the comic book circles these days. He's got a nice clean line. I really like this era design-wise. I really like this logo. Don't make me do it was her desperate plea. Don't make me love you. And then these guys over here are whispering. She's crying into her malted, by the way. She's probably wondering, like, this is Veronica, and she's like, there should be another straw with Archie. He's not there. But meanwhile, these guys here are going, her? Nobody bothers with that chick, Mike. And I'll tell you why. These guys are just gossips. Okay, 82. We get the first cover from an artist we're going to see a whole bunch of covers from, who's not exactly known for his romance work, even though I think that he is very capable of drawing some very attractive women. But it's Don Heck. So here's issue 82. Some of these covers are very clearly Don Heck. And then other ones, either... All I can say is Don Heck has a very fine, we've talked about this before, but he has a very fine line work. And so he can be heavily influenced or overwhelmed by an inker. So if you've got a strong inker with their own style, it can overwhelm Heck's pencils. And so some of these covers we're going to see later, they don't look anything like Don Heck to me, or very little. But this one here, 82. 83, cover attributed to Mike Sekowsky. These appear to be twins. Dick's the sweetest guy that ever lived. I think it's time you faced the truth about him. Really interesting design work. the way their hair meets. So you have this single like black outline, and this guy is in this like, it's almost like, looks like a spade from like a playing card, like the ace of spades, and with the guy in the middle with a negative space formed by their hair. I assume they're twins. They both have like the same curl. They have the same like eyeshadow. 84. Colors are a little muddy for me, but it's a bold statement by this woman. She's saying, "Enjoy yourself, Flo, because I'll soon be taking him away from you. After all, I learned from an expert. You." And the guy's here going, what did I just get into? Okay, this one's really cool. Very excited to show you this one. 85, which is goes for a little bit more than some of the other ones. And it's a little bit harder to get. Has an absolutely great cover by someone you're not probably expecting to be doing the romance covers at this time. It's Tony DeZuniga. It's got this cool United Nations cover. We have a black character in the background, and he's got this very, very sketchy. We've seen this sketchy style from Pike, and we're going to see more of it here in a minute. During this period, a lot of J. Scott Pike covers get very sketchy during this time. Apparently, it's a popular art style. But Tony DeZuniga, of course, most famous for his work on Jonah Hex, also just has a naturally sketchy style. And you can really see it, like the work here is just like scribbles on the guy's pants. They just goes like no regard to the lines right up onto his elbow. It's just someone just scribbling with a marker basically, but it looks super cool. Big fan of this cover. Tony DeZuniga. All right, we start to get some more Don Heck covers now. A lot of these, they have different inkers. Some of them are Coletta. A lot of them are attributed to Dick Giordano, and some of them are really obviously Heck. But there's one here coming up here in a minute. Well, let me just show them to you. Okay, first of all, 86, we get the new logo. Now, we mentioned this last time. We go through a lot of logos. They're constantly trying to figure out a logo. So we go from this to that. This logo to me is very weird. It's often seems too small. The font is just wackadoodle. And, I mean, this to me is like a great logo that doesn't always fit in with the rest of the design work on the cover because it's got the curves and the sways and sometimes just like shoved off to the side. They're trying to make it fit. This one though, man, I don't know what they're doing. Some of these covers look both futuristic and dated at the same time. I don't know. It's just such a weird logo. And we got a Don Heck cover here. A lot of men in these covers wearing handkerchiefs, like big, instead of ties, they're like big handkerchiefs. And I've always hated that look. So not my favorite. The girl saying she ought to be ashamed of herself, and the dude with the neckerchief is saying when he finds out about her, he'll never marry her. There's a lot of gossip covers. We're also going to get here, starting, well, just about got ahead of myself. We get some tropes here. We got the wheelchair cover. I mentioned this last time. Around this time, they start to try and have more diversity in the cover, but a lot of times the black characters are the supporting characters, and a lot of times they're nurses for whatever reason. So here we have a black nurse, blonde lady in a wheelchair. We're mixing a lot of tropes. And then starting with the next issue, we're into the 25-cent giant issues. And again, clearly a different couple, clearly a different woman. Is it the same black nurse? I'm not sure. I haven't actually read these. But she is crying. She is shedding a tear. You can get well, Ellen, but you've got to try. Without Clay, I have nothing. I just want to die. You've got to try. Stop being such a loser and lying there in your deathbed. You loser. Do some work. At least try. Okay, so this one, 89, another giant size, attributed to Don Heck, and I can see it in the guy's face some, but wow, the inking this is attributed to Giordano, and I just don't understand. This is attributed to Heck Pencils, Giordano inks, and it doesn't really look like either of them to me, because Giordano usually has a very smooth, like a very smooth inking style, and Heck is a very sketchy, and I would expect them together like a very light line. I would expect them to have some very, very smooth, silky art, but instead we're getting this super chunkiness that looks more like Kirby, like with the pants and the way that like the shadows here. I mean, this looks like, you know, Mike Royer is inking an issue of like Forever People or something. I I don't know. It's just weird to me. We got another guy with a neckerchief because I don't know. There's a lot of farm hands. I don't know exactly. I don't know why. I don't. A fashion trend. Those of you who were alive back in the day can maybe explain this to me. I mean, I'm totally on board with the miniskirts, but I don't know if they're worth the cost of wearing a neckerchief. 90. And here we just talked about this a minute ago. It's a J. Scott Pike cover with that J. Scott Pike sketchiness that he was using during this time period. Really nice cover. He's only nice to me when there's no one around. Is he ashamed of me? She's crying. They're kissing, and she's crying at the same time. This guy should basically be like, he opens his eyes, he's like, whoa! What's wrong? Why are you crying? We're just making out on this beach. And you're just crying. I don't know. This one, on the other hand, clearly Don Heck. 91. Just it's clearly Don Heck. He's got a way of drawing the cheekbones on the women. There's more coming up here that are just like very obviously. There's one later on that's just like the most obvious Don Heck of all of them. 92. Don't remember the artist. Now, a lot of these, they start to get like, I don't know. I don't recognize the artists. I don't know who they are. And even when you go to GCD, because I did do a little bit of research for once, a lot of them, they're not sure. They don't know for sure who did these. They're not signed. The art styles aren't that's unique necessarily. A lot of these are attributed, they're just guessing, to either Art Saf or to John Rosenberger. We get a nice beach scene. What's interesting here is there are some, there's an ethnically diverse background cast of characters, but they almost look like they're from India rather than being black characters. Not something you see on a lot of, just the way they're colored, the way they're, you know, with their hair. It's not something you see. You don't really see Indian characters on romance covers. Here's one of my favorite covers from this era. Probably my favorite from this period. I just love the yellow and the redheads, and very clean artwork here. Again, they're not sure, guessing John Rosenberger. Some of these, the guess is Oxner. I don't recognize it, but this is one where we have a mark on the man's side. But yeah, there's just something about the coloring on this one. Bright yellow with this reddish pink or whatever color that is, Ling, and the red hair. It really jumps out to me. So I've had 3 different copies of this, and all of them have been really nice. So this is probably like a 7 to 7.5. And I think all the copies I've had of this have been at least a 7, which is a little unusual, unlike some of these other ones. 94. This had, see, like 94, my copy, the corners clipped. It's got foxing. We've got another redhead. And we in one of our previous videos, the Young Romance video, around this time period, I mentioned we have this same design element where we got a hill. So we get a hill covered in grass, a long grassy hill, and then standing in there so that they're like popping up out of that hillside is the couple. Something about the way they drew her billowing dress makes it look like she's pregnant, but I don't think that's intentional. I don't think she's supposed to be pregnant in the story. But it's interesting, they keep using the same design with the hill of grass and the people who are coming up against like the mono sky. This was one of the last issues I got. 94, 98 were the last 2 issues that I was able to get from this run. 95, we get another classic lifeguard beach guy carrying a woman. And again, it's not full Romita, because when Romita was doing these in the 60s, he would be striding out of the waves. But here we got the guy already on land. For some reason, it just does not have quite the same effect. There he is, Nicole. Who is it, him or me? I don't know where I belong. In Johnny's arms or with Peter? Oh, they both look like losers to me. 96. Okay, we get another redhead. It's more of a strawberry blonde. Really, more of a strawberry sort of color. This is the most Don Heck out of all of these covers. You can just see it, particularly in this woman, who's like, she's thinking, Bob, haven't you discovered her secret yet? You haven't discovered her secret yet, and I can't tell you. So it's one of these, but also like the woman here looks like, I don't know, Morgan Le Fay or something. Like she looks like the evil sorceress. Maybe she's supposed to be Cersei, and she just like has ensorcelled this guy. I don't know. That's what it looks like. So Don Heck with those like dramatic. He has these dramatic cheekbones, but because of the sketchiness that he uses there, they sometimes makes the character also look older. That's definitely what we're getting with that woman there. 97. Okay, so we're back to the 20-cent era. So now we get the double bullets. First in comics, best in comics. But of course with the romance, the one bullet is actually the heart. Leave her alone. You have no right to call her those names. Oh no, after what she did? A lot of ostracizing. We could see, like, it's very big in this period to be like, if you're going to be the talk of the town if you dare to make out with a dude, is basically what they're saying. Here's a really cool cover. I like this one a lot. Not sure who the artist is. 98. Although it looks like Pike to me. Just based on the way this man's face is drawn, that looks a lot like Pike's faces in this period, particularly if you look at issue 68 with the Lisa St. Clair. There's all these little faces in the yellow, and this guy, that looks like a classic Pike. The rest of it, not so much, but I guess it's possible that they had the rest of this drawn. They didn't like whatever was here. They just pasted a Pike head on there. But I really dig this one. I like this one quite a bit. 99. We dropped the best, first in comics, best in comics. It looks so much cleaner. Almost done with this logo. In fact, the last issue with this logo is 100. Now, they don't make any kind of big deal about this being the 100th anniversary issue, which is too bad. 101, great cover. I think this is Pike as well. I'm really curious to read the story because of what's happening on the cover. The bride is thinking, Brad doesn't realize it yet, but I've stolen Ellen's place. And we see a woman back here staring through the window. I'm assuming that's Ellen. Now, so I don't know if they were like they switched wigs or something, but yeah, I want to read a story where someone switches places and gets married to the wrong person. This one cost me a little bit more than the others. It was one of the harder issues to get. I like the bold giant logo. 102. We've seen so many variations on this. The guy's thinking she doesn't know that this is our last kiss. And the woman is thinking, he doesn't know that this is our last kiss. We have a lot of people thinking about how it's their last kiss and the other person doesn't know. A lot of shady losers in these comics, to be honest. 103, it's got a lot of things going for it. It's got the classic through the legs shot. It's also got the this sort of late 60s, early 70s, like fringe jacket, like hippie playing a guitar sort of thing. It's got the big logo with the semi-frame. 104, I did a whole video just about 104 because this is my favorite romance comic, and it's there's another one later on that's very close. So 2 issues of Young Love that made this series my favorite. And it is Veil of Love. It's where the Vietnam vet with post-traumatic stress disorder falls in love with a nun, written by Robert Kanigher. And this is the issue that cemented me for life as a romance comics fan. I happen to have a really nice copy of it. Got real lucky with this because my local comic store actually had this. It's around an 8. So I've got a whole video about that you can watch. 105. I do really like this area with this big logo, but the next logo is even better because it's back to the original. Going through logos like left and right. We only had this logo for 5 issues, and it's already gone with the next one. But the next one is one of my favorites. It's 106. All right, first of all, there's a lot to take in here. I love the yellow background. I love the original logo. Let's talk about what's happening on the cover. So first of all, we get this woman up here, and it says, "My romance was ruined by Frizz." Great. But then we have the rest of this. The woman working on the car is saying, "Sure, boys like you are hard to get, Mike, but so are after school jobs. I love you, but I'm going to compete with you, even if I have to look like a sex object." That took a sudden turn into left field there right at the end. And then the rest of it says, "Give me lib or give me love. I was a girl in hot pants, driven to steal a boy's job. A boy I loved. I was the daughter of women's lib." Now, the women's lib comics from this period are uniformly horrible and hilariously bad. But the romance ones in particular, whew, I haven't read the story yet. The cover tells its own story, but there's several other things about this cover. So first of all, you can tell just by the fonts, just by the way it's designed, but the fonts in particular, Joe Simon is now editing this book, right? Joe Simon just took over. That's why we have the logo change. I'm almost certain of it, that the whole look changes. Joe Simon, of course, created the series Young Love, so he goes back to his original logo. He used this kind of font, this kind of lettering on a lot of his books that he was editing at this time period. But also, the GCD attributes the pencil, and a lot of the ones we're going to come up to next, to Craig Flessel. Now, I mentioned this last time around. Craig Flessel, who was one of DC's original artists back in the 30s, doing their covers for Action and stuff, comes back after, apparently, thanks to viewers, I now know he was doing comic strips through most of the 60s, comes back. Attributed to Flessel, they said guessing on the pencils, but they say it's definitely Flessel inks. This looks so much to me like the work that Grandinetti was doing for Simon at the same time on books like Perez, that I would have... it looks even a little bit like Sikowski, but it looks much more like the Grandinetti stuff. And Grandinetti does do some of the covers later as well. So Simon's bringing in his house artists, but I don't know. It's attributed to Flessel. It looks like Grandinetti to me. But anyway, either way, not people you're expecting to be drawing romance covers, and nobody's expecting anyone to draw this romance cover. All right, then we get into the 100-page giants. Now, I find these covers a lot less interesting because they have all the little boxes, and we don't have anything as egregious as we did over in Young Romance. So I'm just going to go through these relatively fast. 108, nice yellow cover. We do get covers here by Pike and by Cardi and Flessel and Grandinetti and all sorts of people, but the art's so minimalized on these. Here's 110. that it almost doesn't really matter that as much who's doing the art. 111, not in great shape, but it looks nice because of the beautiful yellow. I do love the yellow covers. Here's my 112, which is low grade. It's got a lot of chew on the side. Never really cared that much about the condition of these, but particularly the giant size, because it's so hard to get them in nice shape to begin with, but also I don't care that much about reprints, so there's a lot of giant size issues of Young Love, so they're still going with this. Here's 113, and 114 is the last of the giant size. So here's 115. Again, this is attributed to Flessel. Whereas 116 is attributed to Grandinetti. So you don't really expect a Jerry Grandinetti cover. It does kind of almost have horror elements to it. Guy in the background I was thinking, so that's the good girl. Untouched, unkissed, the girl who would always be true to me. And of course she's making out with this guy. Wah. Woo. My first kiss, and I didn't even like the boy. I was too good to be true. The agony and ecstasy of young love. I love that. I love that title, that tagline, by the way. True confessions of a boarding school orphan. Let me grow up. Don't, Alex, not in front of my mother. She thinks I'm still a child. Your mother doesn't want you to grow up because she doesn't want to grow old. Another ongoing sub-theme in a lot of these romance books are the mother-daughter relationship. A lot of, the My Mother, My Rival is the most famous, but there's a lot of covers with the mother sort of interfering, and it's this sort of thing. Okay, yellow. This cover is great. It's very simple, but it's great. Guy's making out with another redhead, but there's this creepy woman peering, like watching them through the window, like a total peeping Tom. And the woman is saying, please, John, don't love me if you don't mean it. You'll break my heart. And then the woman peering through the window is thinking, John's having sport with a housemaid again. He never stops. He's having sport with a housemaid. It's tremendous. It's like Downton Abbey or something. But just this gleeful, like, creeper. I don't know. So much I love about that cover. 119. So that was 118. Here's 119. We got a Love Behind Bars jail cover. So there's we got another one coming up in just a few issues. So one thing to note is that this is where the series goes off the rails in terms of it gets canceled. And then it gets brought back for a little bit. So this has the date of January, right? The next issue says winter on the cover. And here we have an older woman making out with a younger guy on the beach while a bunch of like teenagers laugh at her. Why does this man's kiss hurt? Read too old, too young. And to make sure you know she's older, they gave her this like Bride of Frankenstein beehive or whatever the hell's going on there. So that was 120, and that says winter, right? So we have January, and then it goes to winter, and then the next issue is October, and we're like a whole year ahead now. There's a big break. Now I think this is attributed to Rick Estrada, but it's another theme we've seen a bunch, which is the girl getting on the motorcycle with the creepy guy, and the girl's saying, you bore me, I'm going with him wild and free. And then this creepy guy riding the bike is thinking to himself, wait till she sees just how wild. Ho ho ho. She's clearly never seen Any Which Way But Loose, because if she had, she would know better than to get on this bike with this guy, because he is wearing one of those helmets like the guy. It's too bad. If this was an orangutan, this would be perfect. We get giant size issues. This is a 50-cent giant, And now we're in the death throes. This is the last of the romance comics. The other romance comics have all been canceled at this point. And so when they bring this back after this sort of delay, and where it had also ended for a while, but they bring it back to try and keep and revive the romance, and it only lasts a few issues, but there are some real corkers. 122, my copy's really bad. They're all giant size. 50-cent giants. 123, I think we start to get some covers by Win Mortimer. Although, I don't know, man. This cover is all over the place art-wise. I don't have the attributions to it. But, okay, this guy here, the way he's looking and with these little lines, it's very Neil Adams, but I don't think it's Adams. It's more likely Giordano, you know, who was working very closely with Adams at the time. It's just, it very much has the look of an Adams Giordano panel from Batman or something, right? But look at the people in the background. Right? I think Howard Chaykin had something to do with this cover. I mean, frankly, it looks like 80s Frank Miller. It looks like the people look like something out of like The Dark Knight Returns. But I don't know, man. That does not look like it was drawn by anybody. There's people in the background by anybody we've seen. That looks like Chaykin to me. I don't know. 124, I mentioned this a couple times in different contexts. We get a jail cover, but it's also where they were reprinting the 20 Miles to Heartbreak, which has the story by Alex Toth in it. Definitely worth checking out. Now, for whatever reason, these last 3 issues of the run in particular, 124, 125, 126, and 124, even more specifically of the 3, but these issues seem to be in much higher supply and higher grade. I feel like there's a warehouse find of this in particular, because anytime you want, you can go on eBay and you're going to find a bunch of copies that are like 7.5 or higher. There's always a bunch of them. And I have nice copies of both this and 125, and they just seem to be a lot easier to get. So this is definitely worth checking out for the 20 Miles to Heartbreak, which is part of its reprint in this and part in the next issue. So you want to get both this and 125, because 125, wait for it. Here's something if you're not familiar with this issue, you're going to be surprised by this one, because the cover, any guesses? It's by Walt Simonson. Yes, it's a Walt Simonson romance cover. So I actually have 2 copies of this, both of them nice. And definitely recommend picking these up. Next time, if I'm ever at a show again, I've met Walt before and had him sign some stuff, but if I ever meet him again, definitely going to have this signed for sure. And then finally, I did a whole video about how much I love this. This is the other one, 104 and 126, the last romance comic, one of my all-time favorite comics, period. One of my 2 or 3 favorite romance comics. It's the last issue of Young Love, the last mainstream romance comic. We get a hot redhead, courtesy of Win Mortimer. We also get a CB Radio trucker cover, which is another area of interest for me, because my grandfather drove the big rigs coast to coast for 30 years. And I remember the CB radio craze in the 70s. So this ticks all sorts of boxes. But then you get the stories inside are absolutely lunacy. You can see my copy signed by Paul Kupperberg, who did one of the stories here. There's a story about a Vietnam veteran who supposedly has post-traumatic stress, but it turns out his friend is just using that as an excuse to have an affair with the girl's best friend. And then there's like this story with the CB radio. There's a story by Tom DeFalco, of all people, that's called I Won't Kiss That Evil Way, which is about the evils of French kissing. And then there's an amazing story, I think it might be the Kupperberg story, I forget, but there's a crazy story that involves amnesia and like high-speed race car crashes, and it's amazing. So absolutely amazing comic, one of my favorites. And that's it. That's the end of the romance genre right there. It goes out with a bang. 126, we start to see some stories right there in that last issue which almost feel a little postmodern. There's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek quality to them. And you know, Paul Kupperberg has since gone on to do. He has some of the rights to some of the Charlton titles, and he's published a couple issues of Secret Romance just within the last like 10 years, and they're very sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of not parodies, sort of parodies, but sort of satire of the romance genre. And you can start to see that in those last couple issues where the people working on it are like people who think the genre is goofy, and so they're just going over the top, like whatever craziness they can come up with, and it makes those issues really fun to read. So I love it. I love this series. I'm so excited. Young Love's my favorite title to collect because it has all these crazy stories, has all the ongoing soap operas that I love. So I'm very excited to finish this. So thanks very much for watching. The 12 of you who YouTube showed the video to, thanks very much for clicking on it when the algorithm accidentally showed you this video. And let me know what you think down below. And I'll see you next time.